Last weekend, we made our way to Thirsty Dice, Philadelphia's first board game cafe. We had the opportunity to play the first scenario of the brand new and highly anticipated new edition of Descent, Legends of the Dark. In this game, players join forces as one of 6 characters to explore and save Terranov from the forces of darkness. Will 5 strangers be able to cooperatively forge a path to victory? Or will the gameplay leave us less than impressed? Find out how we fared as we explore Descent, Legends of the Dark.
All right, well, we're back home.
Welcome to
Welcome.
the table.
Back to the table. Back to the studio. So we got to spend a wonderful afternoon
Awesome afternoon, yeah.
down in Philly at Thirsty Dice.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, what an amazing venue. And if you are anywhere near the area of South Philly,
Which you should be if you go to PAX Unplugged
that's true.
with us every year.
Yeah. Then if you haven't stopped in, you're doing yourself a disservice. So
Yeah, they do a really cool job. We actually we had the opportunity to have some food, which was fantastic.
it's delicious.
Very
Absolutely
delicious. They do boozy drinks too. They had boozy milkshake, but it was like in the afternoon, so we couldn't
Yeah,
partake
so we
in
just
that.
had our water with lemon.
We had our
And we
water
had
with
business.
lemon.
We were there for
Yes.
Descent. And
Yes, we were.
That was
we
our
had
focus.
we had a mission.
Yeah.
So let's talk about our experience with this game.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah. And mind you, this is based on one play
It is, and this is I guess something we never did.
of
right?
the first mission of the first of the campaign, if you will. Like it's
Yeah.
the very first thing you do. But it was a 2.5 hour.
It was a 2.5 hour. Like,
Sitting.
you know what it reminded me of is like some of these, like some of the video games that you play. Because I do a lot of watching while you do playing of a lot of these like epic video games, and it's like you play through like the first like 2 hours of the game,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden it's like Death Stranding.
Oh yeah. So yeah, like it's like Death Stranding or any sort of like Square Enix game.
Yes, yeah.
Where you're playing for 2 hours.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now we can start the game.
Right,
And it's
right,
like,
right.
well, are you kidding me? I just spent 2 hours like
Yeah.
doing all this stuff.
Right.
But it definitely, it definitely introduces you to the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And gives you a real. It kind of takes you by the hand. But it doesn't.
much so, yeah.
Yeah, but it not to the point where it's like, well, this is kind of lame. But it really kind of guides you and explains everything. And I think we can kind of talk through all of that, and
Yeah.
without giving away obviously the story
Yeah.
in any way.
Right.
But we definitely will talk about the mechanics and the components as we
Yes.
understood, and the app and,
And
how,
the
and
app.
what the app had to offer, and what
Yeah.
what we saw as differences from when we last played the second
Second
edition.
edition.
From years ago. We haven't played it in a long time,
Mm-hmm.
but I definitely picked up on some of the changes. So let's start out with, like, I think the first thing that most people notice about it
Mm-hmm.
is the 3D terrain.
I really enjoyed, just the atmosphere that it provoked, and I mean the terrain was super nice too. That was like a nice little added bonus, yeah.
Yes. And there's been a lot of questions, I think, about like the setup
Yeah.
and the quality of the components for the setup. There's been a lot of questions I'm seeing out about like, did you need glue and like all this kind of thing. And I think we did not set it up. They had it set up for us, at least put together. They had put it together like for about an hour before we got there.
Hour and a half,
leaving
I think,
that
was
set.
all
So,
in,
yeah. And I
Which
think
we should have some
we have
footage,
some footage
so
of
you get to
that.
see
They
that.
time lapsed it for you.
Yeah.
So, there was no glue needed, no tape, no nothing. Everything kind of held together really well. So I was
It's definitely
mean-
a unique working. Like somebody had to sit there and think about how to create all these like multi-level ways to almost create like a 3D cardboard. And like it's been done in a lot of games recently.
right.
But this was like to the 10th degree. Like,
Oh, yeah.
It just is like, okay, we're going to make everything we possibly can out of cardboard.
Right.
Even that giant like skeleton dragon head.
Well, it was
thing.
like, yeah, the
Like, it
skeleton
was just-
dragon thing,
and
like the
trees, like-
chests.
Yeah, the
were
chest.
like, and I'm thinking like some engineer had to sit here and like figure out how they're gonna fold this cardboard over to like look like a chest.
Right,
you
but
know?
I do
But-
have to say, like the way it like presents itself on the
Mm-hmm.
table is far better than any of the previous versions, and just because there's a little bit more attention to detail. For example, the first few tiles were like dirt. And under
Right.
the dirt, you lay these like flat little cardboard sheets that have water on them. And it creates this sort of water around the dirt.
Right.
And that little bit
Yeah.
kind of creates immersion in the terrain.
It does, because even that, like even the first terrain shifts.
Yeah.
So like you have this water underneath of your dirt, and then you might reveal something in the water or like across
or
the
just-
water, and out,
yeah.
it's like it's really really neat.
And it
how
kind of
comes
opens
together.
up, and you definitely have more of a feel of like exploring this world. And the way that the 3D terrain, and now the 3D terrain isn't just for looks. There are
No, yeah.
mechanics with regards to movement that take the elevation into consideration. Like
Right.
you can walk up the stairs like normal, but you can jump down
A
off
platform,
of
yeah.
a platform onto a lower tier is one move without having to
Right.
go up the stairs again. So there's really neat like
Yeah.
tactical things that you could do with that in mind. So I thought that was pretty cool. It's a little bit more thinky because you've got to now start to think in 3 dimensions versus just you're on a flat board.
Yeah, but I'll talk. Well, I don't want to talk too much about the app right now.
Yeah.
But
we'll go to the app in a bit. Yeah.
parking
So
lot
right
app,
now it's
yeah.
just components, right?
Yes.
The miniatures.
On that end, and I really love like the minis. It seems like it would be multi-dimensional, and that like you could make an activity out of painting them later, or like that there's like lots of different ways you could set it up.
Yeah.
Really, really, really well done. Like they're well done to the point where they almost feel like I'm afraid to pull them out of the plastic because
know, yeah.
they almost feel like you're going to break them because they're so intricate.
Yeah.
They're definitely highly detailed, in my opinion. They're
They
not
are.
huge, but they're definitely like some of them are big, obviously, like
Right.
the big monsters and all that. But like the normal characters are like standard size, but they're not solid like the old ones used to be, like really solid cast in like hard plastic. They're used out of they're made out of a more brittle plastic, but it definitely holds a finer detail.
And I think that's
in the
probably
sculpt.
why they chose to do that.
Yeah. Plus, well, I think the main reason they did it was because on the base, right?
Mm-hmm.
So imagine that your hero's standing on the base. Normally, the base is just a flat disc
Yeah.
of plastic, right, with nothing on it. These bases are almost 3-dimensional, and they're hollow in the bottom, and on top, it actually has terrain. It actually has little bricks carved in
Yeah.
it, or stone or dirt that I actually was like, wow, that's pretty awesome. These would look really good painted. But and this is for the monsters, by the way, because on the monsters you have these tokens that you clip underneath them to identify them by color and by almost like lined dashes. So it
Right.
indicates, like, for those who are colorblind, they
Yeah.
have a way to distinguish the different shapes and colors of the base like tokens,
Right.
so that you know which monsters belong to which monster group. And this is all
Yeah.
goes to the app when it starts doing the AI. But from a like a component and miniatures perspective, there's definitely a bunch of miniatures in this game. Not an overwhelming amount. Like it was like probably as many as you'd see in like a Zombicide game, if you're familiar with that. Like that's like an overwhelming amount.
Yeah.
I think there may be as many, but there's definitely more variety, because Zombicide you have like a whole sheet of zombies, which is like
Right,
which they
yeah.
all look the same.
Yeah.
But in this game, you've obviously got different monster groups, which is really cool, and 6 heroes.
Yes, yeah, and I think it was it's from a miniature standpoint, pulling them out of like the sleeves, I think, or the case. I guess.
case, yeah.
It was a little bit tricky to figure out which monster was which. Like we really kind of had to look at first again because
Yeah.
they're not painted. I'm like, I want
This has
to
to.
paint.
It needs to be painted.
all
This
of
game
them?
needs to be painted. Yeah, like if
and
if
then
we
you'll
were to
kind
get
of
it,
be able to detect. Yeah,
yeah, it'd have to be painted.
Yeah.
So
but
you've
yeah.
got miniatures, you've got the cardboard
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
terrain, which is the same thickness as any other of the Descent games. Like
Yeah.
it's standard in that. Player cards, right? So you've got every. Well, this is where the unique mechanic
Yeah,
comes
so let's
in,
talk
right?
about that.
So let's go
We'll
into
kind
that
of go into
mechanic.
mechanics a little
Yeah.
bit.
I was nervous. I was like, yo, everyone's ganging up on me. What did my character do to deserve any of this?
So what's unique about this, and what kind of distinguishes it from the other versions of Descent, is like you normally would go in with your hero. You'd have your starting weapon, you'd starting equipment per hero, and it would tell you what to set them up with for the start of the dungeon. With this game, you've got a hero sheet, and they have one weapon. Well, two weapons, but it's two-sided. So
Yes.
let me explain. The game comes with sleeves, right? and each hero gets 2 weapons, and we'll just talk about the one hero who's like a knight, right?
Okay.
And she has a sword and a hammer, a great hammer, right? So
It's a warhammer.
Warhammer. You put them to get the 2 cards together so that the weaker version of the hammer is on one side and the weaker version of the sword is facing out on the other side, and you put them in the sleeve, right? So you can flip it over, and that's how it goes. You could use one hammer the whole time, or you could use your sword. It doesn't matter. But you have the ability to ready it, which is flipping it to the other side. And you
Right.
can keep flipping it depending on, but it costs an action, right? But that's how you have to decide tactically what's the best weapon to use now, and is it worth
Right.
readying it to flip to the other side. And why would you do that? Because monsters have weaknesses
Right.
to certain attack types, whether it's
Yeah.
piercing, whether it's slashing, whether it's crushing.
And that's one of the coolest things about, I think, like our experience was
Yes.
like going after the monsters, and then like you slash
Mm-hmm.
with your sword, and you do like 11 damage, and it's like monster is weak
to
to
slashing, yeah.
and everybody's like, yes, I
All right,
got
so
slash.
everybody's
Okay,
getting ready to
everybody-
flip their swords
their
over
swords
and get ready for it.
Which is pretty cool.
Your hero card
Yeah.
also has 2 sides.
Yes.
And it's almost like, think of them as like hero stances, where if you're
that's a good way
the
to think about
the
it.
warrior, my one side was more defensive, so I had like my surges were more defense driven and more helping others that were adjacent to me.
Right.
And then you flip it, the other side is more about mobility, where after
Right.
attack I could actually shift a couple of spaces and then attack again.
And I think that elf hero might have been the same way, where he was like ranged,
Ranged.
and then he had like a more of a melee, maybe.
Yeah, he
or
had,
something
because
like
he
that, so-
well the cool part about
Yeah.
the ranger was that it was like one weapon was your bow, and then
Right,
you'd switch
exactly.
it
Well,
you'd
yeah.
switch it to your knives. But
Yeah.
I don't know what was
I
on
don't know what
the
his
two
other
sides
side
of the
was,
actual
yeah.
hero card were themselves. But another interesting thing about that mechanic is when you take fatigue in this game, just like the other ones, you should be familiar, if you've played Descent, you know what fatigue is, right? When you kind of push yourself a little harder to do things and kind of squeeze extra damage out of an attack, you take fatigue, which I always thought they looked like little sweat drops. But you have the ability to store them on your player sheet or on your weapon, and you have a limit of how many you can store. But if you ready your weapon or your player sheet, once you flip it, all the tokens on it go away.
It's like a rest.
It's like a rest.
Yeah.
So that's how you kind of refresh yourself. But the problem is if you have some certain negative effects, like they call it a scar, is on your card. When you flip the card, you take 2 damage, right? Because it's
Right.
like it hurts you to do what you're doing, but at least you get rid of that scar. But there's other like negative effects like terror and some others that like hurt you over time if you don't get rid of them.
Right,
So
exactly.
that was another interesting mechanic.
What was actually taking those?
Well, the flipping the cards,
Yeah.
like
Oh, that
that's
was- it
that
was
is
very cool.
brand new. Like this is
Yeah.
definitely not something that is from the other versions. There's crafting in this,
Mm-hmm.
and there's like a town mode after you. I mean, I don't think this is giving too much away, but
No,
there's a
I don't
town mode a la Gloomhaven where after you do your
Scenario.
scenario, you go to town, you sell your stuff, you buy new stuff.
Mm-hmm. You might trade stuff between
Trade stuff
players.
between players.
Yeah.
You're gonna have and you while you're on your quest, you're interacting with just about any object in this
Even the trees.
terrain, even the trees, and you're collecting materials along
Uh-huh.
the way. And those materials are used for crafting items because you get recipes for items.
Yeah.
So this is like full-on campaign that I've never seen in this
Yeah.
series before. So that was another really like just for longevity of the game.
Right.
Like it's just all right. We need to collect some more of these materials because I want to be able to craft this.
Right.
Really, really different. Really
Mm-hmm.
neat. I was skeptical, definitely about how this was all going to come together, and was it just another version of Descent repackaged again?
Right.
But mechanically, the game feels very different to me.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Do you want to talk about the app a little bit?
Yeah, I think we need to talk about
Yeah, I
the
want
app.
to talk about this because this I know is kind of like the sticking point. Or
Well, this is-
there's a lot of people that are like, I play board games. I don't play app games.
Okay.
or whatever.
I-
And you know.
As someone who does enjoy like dungeon crawling and like all that stuff, I really enjoyed the experience of it all.
I was really happy with the gameplay. I love the app part of it.
It definitely took care of all that, it took away some of that fiddliness that it was, even with the previous app.
I feel like it would have been a few more hours if we had to like note all the stuff that or we would have had to have a DM or something.
I get it.
I get it,
I do
too.
get it.
I get
And
it, too.
I particularly want to speak to this because to me, the app in this version of the game, in
Mm-hmm.
this particular game, was all about accessibility.
Yeah.
So this, and we've played Descent before, the app and other app-driven games that we've played, I understand the frustration because I tend to be that way too, where I'm like, I'd rather just have a book, or like, I'd rather, not be connected. I play board games to have a tactile experience. But this app is more than just driving the story. So this is not just, we could have done a book, but we did an app instead because we didn't want to print a rule book. This app is storing all of your items for you. So like when you're crafting, you don't have to worry about digging through a bunch of cards because I got 3 berries and
or
one
like
potion and all
keeping
this
them
kind of stuff.
in an envelope because you need to undo that when your next
Exactly.
game that you play a month from now, and remember
the app
what did we
remembers
do?
what you have
Yeah.
so that when you go to the town phase, you know what you're able to craft.
Yep.
And it's kind of put away for you so that you can focus on actually playing the game and being immersed in the
Playing
game.
your character.
Playing your character. And to me, that was really beneficial. The other thing that I liked about the app was that it actually has a range overlay. It's like a range and
it was a line of sight.
Line of sight overlay.
Yeah.
Which again, for somebody like me who these kinds of games are not my, I don't know the best way to put it.
They're
It's
not
not that I
in your
don't
wheelhouse.
enjoy it, but they're not my wheelhouse. I have to take a lot of extra mental energy to determine like, do I have line of sight in this game versus this other game where line of sight was different? And, okay, we have a 3D board. Like, what does that mean as far as my range goes? Can I go upstairs and still have a range of 2? Like, how does this work? And when you're when you're taking your action, you can see your player on the map. You can select,
Well, you don't see him.
you
don't see him in the
but,
app.
But when you do the overlay, you can see where
You click where your
where you're
character is,
located. Yeah.
and then you click where where the monster is,
Yes.
basically.
And then it'll tell you, and it'll actually show you almost like a heat map.
Yeah.
Like where you can go, what the range looks like, what line of sight looks like, and all that.
And
so,
if it's highlighted in red, you can see them.
It's go.
If
Yeah.
it's blank, you can't see them.
Right.
So so it takes care of all the questions about looking around corners.
Right.
Because there were guys we didn't think we could see.
Yeah.
Hit the overlay, and it's
Yes.
like, oh yeah, I have a
Yeah.
line of sight, so I'm gonna hit them.
yeah, the I don't want to say the last thing, but the other thing that the app does,
Mm-hmm.
again, for me was like makes this game so accessible for me and probably a lot of players like me is it takes care of the combat.
Yeah.
So you're not worrying about, okay, I've got 3 different monsters on the board and they all have different shields and this one has a shield if you have a sword but not if you have a bow and like, all these different things. And you're able to just say, here's who I am. App knows who you are and what your strengths are. You tell it what weapon you're attacking with. It knows the weapon, it knows the strengths, all that kind of thing. And obviously, you tell it what monster you're attacking, and it knows what range it knows everything. So, it just tells you how much damage you did, and you get to immediately just celebrate or move on and attack
move on to
again.
the next
You
thing.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
it's
it just makes the
very
gameplay.
intuitive.
I mean, when we say we had 2.5 hours with this game, we spent 2.5 hours involved in playing our character
Yep.
in this world, not nose deep in a rule book,
Yep.
trying to figure out
Or
whether I killed the monster.
Yeah, calculating
Do you know what I
their
mean?
shields versus my
Exactly.
damage versus all
Right.
the negative effects.
Which for some people really enjoy.
Yeah, I don't enjoy.
I don't
that
enjoy
either.
that.
I don't know. These are the types of games
Yeah.
I like, and
Right.
I do not enjoy that.
Yeah.
Now the old apps didn't do that. They let
Right.
you figure all that out.
Yeah.
All they did was keep track of the rounds and tell you where to put things on the board
Right.
and what monsters to spawn.
It was like a guide.
It really
way,
was.
I
It kind of
guess.
just kind of held your hand, but it did not do any of that other stuff. And with this game, it's like, okay, it's my turn. I'm going to go. I'm going to attack. I literally hold my finger on my guy, pull an arrow over to the monster I'm attacking. It doesn't know where they are on the board.
Right.
You have to keep track of that because that's the
Yeah,
board,
obviously,
right?
yeah.
So you're putting it onto that monster and you're saying, okay, I'm attacking him with this weapon. And then everything else is dice. So you get your dice, and it's very intuitive. It tells you exactly what die you need to
Yeah,
roll for an
yeah.
attack on your hero. You roll that die, you count your successes, right?
Right.
There's either a success,
Yeah.
a surge, or a plus.
Yes.
Right? If it's a success,
Plus is like an advantage.
plus is
Yeah.
plus you can turn into a success with
Sweat.
Yeah, well, basically when you whatever it's called,
fatigue yourself, yeah.
you fatigue yourself. So you can turn it into a success, and then you count up all your successes. You tell the system how many successes you had, and it will automatically calculate and apply the damage to that monster. And then the monster may have a counterattack or an effect that comes back, and it tells you about that. If there's anything modifier-wise that you need to keep in mind when you're adding your successes up, it'll tell you that.
Right.
So you don't have to remember that. Like these
Yeah.
are major things for me
Yeah.
when playing something like this, where I don't have to worry about all the fiddly little bookkeeping rules.
Yeah.
when I want to dungeon crawl.
And for me, as far as the combat goes, like the part of combat that I enjoy is actually putting together and triggering and deciding whether or not to, do I spend my fatigue? Do I not? Can an opponent or not an opponent, can I, fellow hero help me out because they're adjacent? We all get to make that decision together as a group or, individually as we're fighting. And the app's not doing that for you, obviously. So you're still playing the game.
You are.
But it's doing all the, like you said, kind of the fiddly calculatory nonsense.
It's being the dungeon master, right?
It is, yeah,
You roll the
exactly.
die, the dungeon master tells you what happens.
Yes.
Like, it's the same thing. It tells you the story.
Right.
You enact and make your decision on the
Yeah.
board what you want to do. You attack, you roll your dice, and then you go, okay, DM, what did I do?
Right.
I said, okay, you did 18 damage to it.
Yeah, and you're like, yes!
Or you critically missed, and you're like, no, that's
Yeah.
terrible.
Right.
But it does this for you. One thing I did really appreciate about this version of the game, and maybe it was just the first scenario, and I
Okay.
don't know.
Yeah.
I we'd have to play more to know, is whether or not one thing I did not like about the older versions of Descent is this incessant pressure to keep moving and not really enjoying the exploration of the board. Because the more
yeah.
you sat in a room, the more you sat in an area, the more they started throwing monsters at you, to the point where it became overwhelming, and it was just like you're practically just running away from monsters the whole game because you can't sit and fight. In this game, you kill all the monsters, they're dead.
Yeah, it's like
Right?
time passes.
Yeah,
Like, that's
until
it.
you move into the next area and spawn more
Right.
monsters, they're dead. They don't just keep coming.
Yeah.
At least for the most part. There
Right.
are parts of the scenario where
I would say
monsters
probably towards
the end where they
scenario,
do keep coming, but I do appreciate being able to explore a bit, because if you want me to look at the
Yes.
tree, you want me to look at
Yes.
this chest over here, you want me to
Right.
look at this, I can't do that if I'm running for dear life from monsters the whole
Yeah.
game. And I don't enjoy that, and I think that was the biggest flaw in the old version of the game for me.
Right.
Because I enjoy the exploration part of it and
Yeah.
searching and doing all that stuff, the mystery, and they didn't let you enjoy that, and I don't know why, but this version did not do that.
Right.
with the apps.
I
I do
absolutely
like that.
100% agree. And again, that's also what kind of reminded me more of these like guided but open world like video game
Yeah.
type of platforms. So you're going through, maybe you fight kind of like a minor boss, or you go through some kind of scenario or something.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've got some time to like wander around and like scavenge for stuff.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and again, because the crafting and the town phase and all that is such a big part of this game, it's great that you can go around.
You
and
need
can,
that.
You can pick the fruit off the trees, or
Yeah.
you can climb, or you can, forage for whatever. You can, get your potions and get your spells and like all
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff. If you want to take the time to do that. Now, there were times, obviously, we were so immersed in the story that we're like, okay, everybody good? Like, we want to go through this door now.
Yeah,
let's
let's
smash
just
that
go.
door. So, you really get engaged in the story. And I really, really appreciated that aspect. And again, just being able to enjoy the story
Mm.
and not have to worry about all the bookkeeping, for me, made this accessible and something that I want to play.
Yeah. Yeah, when we were done, the first thing we thought was, I want to play this again.
Yeah,
Like,
and we
that's-
wanted to keep going.
Yeah, and that was after 2.5 hours
Right.
where we had to get home. So it
Yeah.
was just like, eek, okay, so let's go. Yeah, we really did enjoy it.
Yeah.
One thing I will say is like the art in the game is definitely different from what it used to be. I liked the older art better. That's just my opinion. Not a big fan of the new art, but it works. The minis again, the minis are cooler than
Yeah.
than the player boards in my opinion. But the way the art is put into the app and it's kind of like flowing and animated,
Yeah.
looks really good. But
you prefer
the
it
style's a little bit just not wouldn't be my choice. That's all.
Right.
That's just a personal preference. I'm not like I don't hate on it, but I don't love it.
Yeah.
So, but otherwise, I mean, I could overlook it. It's fine.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the character art, not the equipment and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, because
Yeah.
all that was pretty good.
Yeah. Just the style of it was just not up my alley. That's all.
Right. Right.
but
Yeah, I think that was
otherwise,
kind
yeah.
of like our takeaway at the end, was just that we all wanted to stay and keep playing.
And we keep playing. Yeah, we all really enjoyed it. We played a 4-player game, by the way.
Yes, we did.
But you'll see the footage. Anyway.
Yeah,
You've already seen it.
You've probably already seen some. I should have interspersed some throughout our conversation.
Yes, indeed. But yeah, I think the one roadblock, I think for anybody at this point, is going to be the price.
Yeah, we should talk about that.
Yeah, so you're looking at a $150 game.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Which on the surface sounds terrible, but if you think about what you're willing to spend on Kickstarter,
yeah.
it could be around that price point, but
Yeah.
you may also be getting more stuff on Kickstarter.
That's true. Yeah. My thing was this, because we talked about this on the way home. Like, okay, so did you have fun with it? You know, we debrief all the time.
Yeah.
But my thing was like, I mean, you may pick this up to play it by yourself, right? Or you may play it with like one other
If
person.
I was a solo
right?
gamer, I
You would-
wouldn't
you
even
would-
be thinking about this right now. I'd be playing it. Honestly, that's to me as a solo gamer. Like
Yeah.
this is exactly what I would love to play.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, I'm thinking if you are a group and you are looking to play as a group, because I just had a really fun experience with a group.
Yeah.
And I could see us, like, if we had a solid group that played, like, every, week or something like that everybody could kind of, like, pitch in and have this experience with this game.
Yeah.
And that then makes it accessible.
Yep.
So do all 5 people in your game group need to buy this? No.
Right.
So
No, you
that
don't.
would be probably a creative way that I would try to get some of my friends to pitch in
Yeah.
buy this game, which we may still do.
Or sell some games you
But,
don't play
yeah,
anymore.
Give her some stuff you don't want.
And
I would say it's
for
definitely the experience is definitely worth it based on the first scenario.
Based
Again,
on what we got
haven't
out
played
of
the
the
rest
first
of it.
scenario, Yeah.
The rest might be terrible.
Yeah, and I heard a lot of
but-
like just a lot of negative feedback from people just about what they thought about the game, right?
Did you? Okay, here's the. I don't listen to anybody.
I mean,
like, I wanna
not that it swayed me, but I was obviously
Yeah.
curious, and just a lot of people are just down on the app itself,
Oh,
the fact
yeah,
it uses
yeah,
an app.
right.
But I mean, how many app games have just come out recently?
It's been
like
so many,
a lot.
I know.
In fact, we've just played Destiny's.
just played Destiny's. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
an
which
app
we haven't
game,
talked about
right?
yet.
So which
Yeah.
we're going to save for a discussion at a later time, but this is an app game too, and yeah, I tell you.
Yeah.
Go.
Sorry.
No,
go
go,
ahead.
go.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'm on the fence right now just because of the price, but and just because I just bought a PS5,
Well,
so
that-
that sent me back a little bit. But I was able to get one. So just got it today, as a matter of fact. But anyway,
All right. Flex much.
I've been trying since the release date to get one. By the way,
Been this guy.
yeah, I've been literally pushing buttons on the computer, refreshing things, and I finally got one. But in any case, if I didn't get my PS5, I'd probably pull the trigger on this one personally.
Okay. I think my biggest hesitation would be that we don't play campaign games as much as we should.
I was talking about for me.
Oh, for you?
Yeah.
Oh. I don't play campaign games as much as I should. Well,
No, we would get it. We would play it.
my
I'd make a
birthday is
point.
coming up.
Your birthday is coming up, but I don't know if we just don't typically buy each other games for our birthday.
We don't. I know it's weird, but I don't know. It's gonna be a good one.
That's an expensive birthday gift, man.
Pretty expensive birthday.
Yeah.
But it's worth it.
It is
No,
worth
but
it.
here's I actually could, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking like I could see the kids getting into this with us too.
They would enjoy this one.
especially because it plays.
Well, here's
So
the
many
thing. All
well.
because all they have to do, they don't have to learn any rules. The app does everything for them. They don't
Yeah, that's
even.
true.
All they have to learn is the major mechanics of how the cards work with the flips, how much they can move, what line of sight is, which the app tells you.
Yeah.
And they just have to roll dice and enjoy the adventure. Like I think that's a
Which they
super
would,
easy,
I
a
think.
super easy
Yeah.
way to get kids into this game.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, especially like they love apps anyway. So
You see, that is such a good point.
like
It
this,
really
the whole thing
is.
would. Here's the thing: we were playing this game in the middle of this board game cafe, right?
Yeah.
And you've got somebody who walked over who never saw this type of game before, and they were like, "Oh my god, what are you guys playing?
Yeah.
That looks awesome."
He's there with his whole family.
Yeah.
And all of his kids, like they're running around and having a good time.
Yeah.
And he's like, he comes over and he's like, "What is this?
Yeah, and
What are you doing?"
he just eyes lit up, and he was just
Yeah.
like, "This is incredible." And then he was like so into our
Yeah.
fight with this monster
Yeah, yeah.
that at the end he comes back over. He's like, "Did you guys?"
He's
beat
like, "Did you beat him?
Yeah,
Did you beat
we're
him?"
like, "Yeah, we did." And he's like,
He's
"Yeah." But like somebody who's probably never played this type of game before, but just laid out on this
Right.
table with the app going and all, just the ambiance and
Uh-huh.
us getting into it was just
Right.
enough to like, to
Right,
draw
yeah.
attention of somebody. Like that's
Yeah.
just that's
Well,
awesome.
again, like we always talk about how games, at least what we like is to kind of bring people into the hobby.
Yeah.
Like, because board games are really fun and it's a great way to get people together and playing and all of that. I have two points on that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, number one, again, this is a great way to bring people into like an adventure type of experience,
Yeah.
dungeon crawlery kind of experience. It's not, at least like the first scenario, it's not so punishing
Mm-hmm.
that you're not having a good time with it, and you're not spending all your time doing calculations, which
Yep.
can, for a brand new gamer or somebody just coming into the hobby, it's going to turn them off completely.
Yep.
But if all they have to do is watch, the story unfold and they're making their decisions, the app's taking care of all the calculations and stuff for them, it's going to bring people in.
Yeah, absolutely. And the app had multiple difficulty levels to choose
Oh, that is true
in
too.
the beginning.
Yeah.
So you can make this as hard or as easy as you want,
Right.
depending on the crowd that you're playing
Yeah.
with. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's great. I mean, come on.
Yeah. And I forgot my second point.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
It was so good though.
Could have been that good.
I don't know. It was something about just kind of bringing people together. But I
Okay.
think that
like that's the whole point of all this.
it really is.
Is gaming. We all do this because it brings us all together. And
Right.
that's why we love the
Oh,
hobby.
that's what I was going to say. We played this 4-player game, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had never met the other 3 people that we played with.
Right. We played
And-
on the same. We played as the same character. We took turns because we were.
Oh yeah.
We were both running around
yeah, exactly.
doing
we were
filming and
camera,
stuff.
and we were eating and all that kind of stuff.
So we played with 3 other people. Never met them before.
Yeah, and by the end, it was like we all exchanged information.
We all,
It
yeah, I
was
think
like,
we all wanted to hug it out at the end because it was like you went through this this traumatic adventure with them. You
Yes.
felt like you were really part of a
Yeah,
party.
yeah.
And it's amazing
Yeah.
how people from all different walks of life can come together, have never met each other before.
Right. And just connect
leave
on an
like
experience
and
like
leave
this.
like friends, right? Like
Yeah.
it's amazing. Like
Yeah.
that's what this hobby does. It's,
and
it's so
that's
good.
that's why we love it.
That's why we do it.
So.
That's why we continue to do it.
Like it looked great, played really smoothly.
We each took turns, like voice acting essentially, which was fun.
I did not die. I lasted. It was good. Me and my archery skills, long range.
Like we played for 2.5 hours, and there's still so much more.
I mean, I had a good it was definitely a good intro to the whole game itself.
It was a really good time.
It's really cool. I liked it.
Literally within 3 minutes of opening the box, putting it together, and playing, I was like, yeah, I gotta get this game.
Yeah. So, number one takeaway. Or do
All
you
right.
have one takeaway?
My
from
one takeaway.
Descent? Yeah.
Yeah. So one takeaway from Descent is I went in not expecting to really like it or to be really impressed by it, considering I've already played the other 2 versions of it. I was wrong. I really enjoyed my time with it. And my takeaway is if I can find a way to, I will try to buy this game. That's my takeaway.
Because my birthday is coming.
Your birthday is coming. Okay. And you?
My takeaway? Okay, so my takeaway is if you're apprehensive about the app, don't be.
Yes.
This app is not a design option, in my opinion. It is completely necessary. You're going to love it because you're not going to want to do, at least I think the majority of you are probably not going to want to
Yeah.
do a lot of the calculations and bookkeeping and things like that. And it to me really was a tool to help me enjoy the part of the game that is the game,
Yeah.
right? And I think that if I had, if I could say like one thing about it, it's just that if an app were to be integrated into a board game, this is exactly the type of game that needs an app,
Yeah.
and this is exactly how it should be executed.
I agree. I think all of the other apps leading up to this, like the Descent app, the Imperial, the Star Wars one,
Imperial Assault.
Imperial Assault, they were kind of like manufactured to implement them as a companion. Like
Right.
this is not a companion. This drives
it's
the
integral, yeah.
game, and I think that's the way these apps. Like if you're going to do an app, you need to do it this way.
Right.
Don't half-ass it. I'll put it that way
Yeah.
because I think what that does is it makes it a really clunky implementation, and the overall experience isn't that good because I didn't enjoy any of those. I think the only one that I really did enjoy out of these app type games out of Fantasy Flight would be Mansions of Madness Second Edition. Like that one we really
Yeah.
enjoyed. I think
Yeah.
it was done really well. This one goes even beyond that in what
Oh, yeah.
what
For
its
sure.
capabilities are.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was way better in implementation and the way and the benefits you get from it.
Again, it's a tool. I think
Yeah.
that, and if you're going to have an app, I think it should be a tool.
Yep.
And this absolutely was.
Yeah, and it worked for
Makes
us.
your life easier.
Yeah.
At least for us, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
we're not
helps.
so like rigid in the sense that no apps in our
Yeah.
games ever. Like
Yeah.
I think an app is fine if it's implemented Right.
Right. And this absolutely 100% was implemented.
They nailed
it.
they
Yeah.
nailed it on this, and I know there's a ton of you probably going to disagree with us on
And
that.
that's okay.
And that's okay because when I want to play a strictly cardboard game, it's typically a Euro.
Yeah.
When I want to
Yeah.
play an adventure game, I don't mind having an app help me out.
Right, because I don't want to do all that
That's
extra
simple.
crap.
Too much math. I do math
Even
all
for
day.
him.
I do math all day at work. I don't need to do it at home when I'm playing games.
Yeah.
Don't need that. So
Okay.
that's it. I think
Cool.
I think that about sums
I
it up.
think so too. Yeah.
So look, you're going to make your own decision whether or not you're going to want to go out and check out the new Descent. It's
Yeah.
really, for us, we enjoyed it enough to want to get it. So we'll most
Yeah.
likely be adding it to our collection based on one play. And that's-
yeah,
and
that
that's-
is it, right?
Which is crazy because this is, this was
Something we
just
never do.
something we don't typically do. But I think with this type of game, since we've already played Descent, I guess
Yeah.
you can't say it's our first time ever playing Descent.
Right. Like we
We've
know
played
this,
the series enough. I do love the lore. I like Taradnoth. I like just the character types. I like their abilities. I do like the style of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And this one took away all the bad parts of what I didn't enjoy about the series.
Right.
And
Yeah. Agreed.
and I want to get it just because I think it would look really good painted,
I think so too.
and I want to try out my new airbrush that I haven't used yet. So
I got him an airbrush to paint
Yeah.
like
2 years ago,
I think it was
maybe
3 years
three.
ago
Yeah,
now.
it's still
Yeah,
in
it's still in the box.
the box. Yeah, so this would get it to come out, I think.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging in there with us. If, like I said before, if you are in the Philly area, get down to Thirsty Dice
Yes.
and go check that place out.
Yes, and we will be there again in the future,
Yeah.
and we'll try to give you guys a heads up on our next event because we do have one coming up.
Yeah,
just
we'd
an
love because
exact
we'd love you
date,
to come
so-
down and we'd love to play a game with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just they have tons of games there. So
Yeah,
I think
very
there's
cool.
about 800 games there.
Yeah.
Well, from what I was told, and I could tell there was
Yeah.
a lot, and that puts our collection to shame. So.
It does. Yeah.
All right, well, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you next time.
We'll see you.